And so the idea with even
or
with
terror
DevOps,
prone.
Absolutely. So just the idea of it's all there for me.
It's all there. If we're going into an era of microservices, so we're going to have a lot more projects. And if every time you start a project, you have to set all of this up, it's tedious, it's boring. And you can customize it if you want, but we're just going to make sure that it's a great experience out of the box. So you're not going to waste time on that. You can spend your time with the application.
So that's 10.0, that's where we've been, that's what you guys have been up to. But to the future now, you have some changes coming.
Well, first of all, like in a company, one of the most important things is to have great leaders. People don't quit the company, they quit their boss. So I want to make sure that we have great people at GitLab.
That's good.
And we have a few new hires I'm really excited to tell you about. Joe Sherman joined as our Chief Marketing Officer. Barbie Graver joined as our Chief Culture Officer, so she's running the People Ops department, and she's a steward of the GitLab culture. And Eric Johnson joined as our VP of Engineering.
And we're fortunate enough to have Barbie here with us today. Barbie, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi guys, thank you for having me.
Welcome to this GitLab Live event.
Great to be here.
You've got a history in a deep history, 20 plus years in HR, culture development, companies like Cisco, Netflix, and now GitLab.
Yeah.
Why GitLab?
Well, GitLab gave me the opportunity to actually feel like I can make a difference again. I think that after I worked at Netflix, I wasn't quite sure I'd want to go to another company again. But after I met Sid, I recognized that he understood the value of people, he understood the importance of culture and values at a company, and he also really showed in the way he's built the company the importance and the belief in transparency. And I think transparency is really key to productive operations for any organization. I think in order to have an inclusive environment, you need to be able to be direct and honest with each other. I think in order to have a high-functioning environment, you need that as well. And so I appreciate that all employees have all the information and that we're not trying to keep anything hidden. So in addition to that, I think that GitLab came onto my radar screen even before the recruiter called me. And my fiance actually owns a company, and they had been using a competitor. And about 2 weeks before Sid and the recruiters reached out to me, he came home talking about how they were all switching to GitLab and how much happy his engineers were with that. And so I was like, kind of like, okay, what's this GitLab thing? I'd heard about it.
Called you.
Yeah, I had heard about it a little bit, and almost felt like fate that I had heard about how great it was, and then they were actually calling me. I felt pretty lucky.
So in the face of your job in culture, culture officer, chief culture officer, you've got a remote friendly first company. How hard is that challenge? What do you plan to do there?
I think in some ways it makes things less challenging, and in some ways it makes things more challenging. I think that we should be able to have a lot of diverse perspectives because we have people from around the world either contributing or working directly for us. And that's a huge benefit to any company to get those diverse perspectives. In the same way, we have to make sure we're hearing those perspectives and we're getting those perspectives because with people being remote, we have to make sure we're providing a platform and an opportunity for those voices to be heard. And I think that we're doing a great job at GitLab so far, but I need to make sure we can scale it. And so I think together with the leadership team that we have, I have every faith that if it can be scaled, GitLab is the company to do it. And then I hope that we can then inform and help other companies how to do that as well, because I think it's great for families, great for individuals, great for the environment, and great for communities.
Families first, for sure.
So there's been a lot of problems, in the industry with culture. I've never heard of a chief culture officer. Maybe that's a thing already. Probably it is, but you're the first one that I've met. Yeah. This is like a whole new line of things that we know are so important that they get a top-level title like that. Can you talk about the importance of that in light of the current culture in Silicon Valley and in the tech industry in general?
Yeah, well, I think Peter Drucker said it best when he said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." Right? It doesn't matter how great your strategy is if you don't have the right people to execute on it and inform it. And I think that culture plays a huge role in that. And everything that we do at the company needs to track back to strong values in some way. We shouldn't have any HR program or HR process that doesn't support the business and the strategy of the business and what we're trying to accomplish. And so many companies, their people ops, their HR leaders may have a wonderful degree and had gone to some great schooling. It's almost having to forget what you've learned to reinvent what is best. And that's what innovative companies do in their products. They're not just trying to follow others. They're trying to do something new in the marketplace that is better than what has happened before. Well, people ops and HR teams should try to do the same thing. They shouldn't just follow other people. They should be thinking, what is this business? What do we want to try to accomplish? And how should we run our company? What should our values be? And everything we do and everyone we hire and everyone we promote should track back to those values and that culture.
So coming in from the outside, a company that's existed now for a while, a culture begins from top down or from the inside out, right? Who you are. What are some challenges that you face, and how are you going to integrate yourself into GitLab in order to do your job well?
Well, that's a great question that I might not have the entire answer to yet. I think that as I navigate these waters and this new opportunity, I will probably make some mistakes, and we all will, but hopefully we learn from them and we can keep iterating on what we're trying to do and keep making it better. And I don't want to be afraid to make a mistake such that I don't end up encouraging new bright ideas and new possibilities. So I think that, one, I will try to get to know everybody, and I'm doing my best to do that now. We have some great things in place at GitLab that enable our employees to get to know each other, and so participating in that and then also trying to iterate to make that better, I think will be a key opportunity for my team and I. And as well as the things like the summits that we do where we can get together with people there in order to get to know the employees. But then I'll be trying some new things, and I'll be throwing some things against the wall and seeing what sticks and hoping that the great things do. So it'll be fun and interesting, and I'm really looking forward to being able to put my mark on things, and Sid is a great partner for me in that.
So to all the GitLabbers out there watching this right now, they're meeting you potentially for the first time to some degree, right? Yeah. What message do you want to send directly to them? Like if you were speaking directly to those folks.
If I was speaking, well, I am.
Hey,
hello, everybody. I would say thank you so much for being at GitLab, and I really hope that all our contributors and all our employees can make sure that they feel very comfortable reaching out to me and giving me their ideas and perspectives and sharing with me what their pains are and what their delights are, so we can continue to build off what's great and improve what's not. And no company is perfect and no human is perfect, so we will all get through this together if we're open and honest with each other. So I love to hear the hard stuff that people don't want to hear, because hearing those hard things is what makes us better.
Well, Barbara, thanks so much for joining us. We'd love to catch back up with you in 6 months or a year and just find out how it's gone as you kind of set forth to do your job.
Thank you very, very much. Great meeting you. Thank you.
Bye. All right, so there's some new executive members of the team.
Yep.
What else you got?
Well, we got one big announcement, and that's that Google Ventures decided to lead a round in GitLab. So we're getting a $20 million C round.
Nice.
And that's more than double the valuation of our previous round. So we're really excited for Google Ventures to lead that. And we found a great partner in Google Ventures and a great partner at Google Ventures. His name is Dave, and he's on the forefront of cloud-native computing, and I was really swayed by his vision of where the industry is going, from bare metal servers to virtual machines to cloud-native Kubernetes container schedulers. So I'm really excited to have them lead the round.
Well, congratulations on the round, first of all.
Yes, of course.
And we're lucky enough to have Dave here.
Dave,
Talk to us about it.
good to have you here, brother.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
You've got a big background, right? You've Kiva Systems, your background at Google Ventures. You've built million-dollar companies, like multi-million-dollar companies. You've helped do that. And now you're here at GitLab, and the easiest question would be just simply, why GitLab?
I mean, I couldn't be more pleased to be involved with Sid and GitLab. I think it's a tremendous community. When we think about investing, obviously we want to be involved like any other venture capital firm. We want to be involved in the fastest growing companies in the world. We think about that a little bit differently than most firms in that we are looking for dev-focused tools. We think software will disrupt the enterprises of the future. And so we think the best tools that create the best software teams and help enable and empower the best software teams will become enormous companies over time. And we're certainly seeing that with GitLab. You know, we saw that in other investments like Slack, CoreOS, Cockroach Labs, 3 companies that I'm deeply involved in. And you know, for us, the enthusiasm around GitLab is twofold. It's one, what we hear from CTOs and CIOs that we talk to, and their enthusiasm about working with Sid's team. And the other is the development community. I mean, this community is tremendous. And when you talk to engineers across the valley and across the country and now around the world, they say tremendous things about GitLab. We've been pleased so far.
So tools, strategies, ideas, business plans, these are all important things. What I hear a lot of investors say is that they invest in people and teams. I assume that's also a huge factor in the investments that you all do. Yeah. So act like he's not sitting over there. What is it about Sid and the team at GitLab that attracted you as well to the market proposition?
Yeah, so I think it's very difficult to decouple the product and the team in a company at this stage. I mean, essentially, your culture is your product, is your team, is your identity. I mean, you're communicating out to the world with every change that you make in your product, right? And so we really we get a great feel for how fast the team works, how well coordinated they are, and the breadth of the contributions to the GitLab project just through the product itself. But Sid's been fantastic to work with from the very beginning. I've been chasing this guy down for, what, a year and a half trying to invest in this company, and we're pleased to finally be able to get involved.
Wow, so you chased him down.
Of course, yeah.
That's the best.
That's how all
awesome.
the best investments are found.
So this company is an open source company. You mentioned CoreOS, Cockroach Labs.
That's
right. What was the other one?
Slack.
Slack. Well, not Slack.
Not an open source.
Not open
That's
source
right.
company. What was the other?
Cloudera is an open source company.
Okay.
Yep.
So what is it about open
space.
source companies for you in terms of investing? Why open source? Why this kind of company? Why is that a good mix?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a few trends. Obviously, the most secure and the best software in the world, I think, is open source. We're also seeing this trend towards clouds creating these like closed ecosystems, and that's a concern, right? So we think the best companies will sit across many clouds and be multi-cloud and hybrid, just like GitLab is, and be able to provide a solution across these large vendors who are essentially creating their own walled gardens.
So whenever I give somebody my money, the first thing I usually think is, what are they going to do with it? So if we had to ask, now that's up to the team.
Yeah, right,
if we had to ask you, what would you like to see GitLab spending the money on? Like, what
it's funny, I always joke around that you learn the most about a company in the first meeting that you have after investment. And so often you'll invest in a company and show up in the first board meeting and sit there, and either you walk away from that board meeting saying, wow, I made a great decision, or you walk away like, we have a lot of work to do. And in this case, had lunch with Sid on Friday, immediately after the round closed, and we had a great conversation about where the company is today, all the changes that they've made just since we closed diligence not too long ago, and Friday. And I've been impressed just already in the trajectory of the things that are already in place. Sid's got the plans down, and he's already spending the time and attention that it takes to build for the next level.
So as an investor, what's your role, like day to day?
Yeah. So at GV, we get a little bit more involved in companies than you would expect. I'll meet often with Sid. We'll figure out the 5 or 10 different ways that GV can add a lot of value. Often that's connecting him to people that we know. We're generally 1 or 2 hops from people that could create a lot of value for Sid. It's helping him find great hires. I couldn't have found a better culture officer than Barbie. She was fantastic on here. And I think finding other leaders across the organization who are at that level is really important. They already have a fantastic team. As that team continues to grow, we'll be helping them find best-in-class folks.
Very good.
Well, Dave, congrats on getting involved.
Thanks so much.
Finally catching him.
Yeah, seriously.
And thanks so much for joining us today.
Yes.
We're super excited. Thank
you,
very
Dave.
much. Take care.
So Sid, that's Dave, member of the board. Not the only member of the board that you're happy to announce today. What else you got?
Yeah. A great team at the company is important, but it's also very important that there's great governance at the top of the company. So our board of directors, they set the tone of what we're allowed to spend our money on, what we do, how we approach the balance between open source and closed source, the features that we make money with. And I'm very excited to announce that Matt Mullenweg, the CEO of Automatic and founder of WordPress, decided to join our board. And I think he's a leading figure about thinking about open source and how to build a business on that and a remote-only work culture. So I'm stoked.
Well, you don't have to tell us too much about Matt.
We're
fans,
huge
from,
fans
from way back. We've had Matt on the show, and we're fortunate enough to also have Matt on the call. Hi, Matt.
Hi, good to see you all.
Matt, you're joining us virtually from New York, right?
Yeah, New York City.
Gotcha. Well, it's awesome to have you here today. Obviously, it must be a big thing for you to extend what you've done already in open source to now lend your expertise to this company. Why? We've asked everyone pretty much the same question, but why GitLab for you?
Yeah, it was definitely a big decision because both leading Automatic and WordPress core is a big commitment of my time. So, in talking to Sid, one of the things that got me very excited was, well, first, I believe that distributed is the future of work. And it was exciting to see another distributed company that was growing so thoughtfully and in such an interesting way. Transparency above and beyond even what we do at Automatic. But applying it to an open source space, enterprise open source space. And second, I believe that the approach that GitLab takes is the future of development as well. So combining that future of work with future of development is very exciting to be involved.
Can you say that one more time?
Contribute any of my experience and learn a lot as well.
No, I heard him. I want to hear it again. GitLab is the future of development. You said that right?
I believe so.
Okay. You've heard it here first, everybody. I mean, that's, well, not first, but like first from Matt. I mean, Matt has a lot of influence, and having him say that, Sid, I mean, that's a big deal.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Like you have certain heroes in the open source community, and then you're excited. I get to video call once with Matt, and he might not remember, but I remember very well. And you feel like, wow, it's amazing that I'm now in a call, but to have him on the board and involved in the day-to-day of the company is awesome.
So Matt, there's obvious alignments between the core philosophies and the values of your company and GitLab's. What about the products? Just thinking out loud, like, is there anything down the line with GitLab and WordPress? And there's like is there any potential there? I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, that is a big conversation.
Oh, we have all day. No, we don't.
Millions of people that do WordPress development day to day, but it's definitely something in our minds. Is probably
Thinking about
WordPress is still on track in Subversion, so I think that it's not our top priority this year, but in the future, because we're focused on things like Invert, in the future, it definitely is on the radar for a place we could improve.
You just put him on the hook.
Look at me. I'm doing sales now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're hiring for sales anytime.
I backed into it.
Maybe keying off that is there's obvious parallels between what you've done with WordPress over the years and then what Sid's doing and trying to do, obviously, with your help and everyone else's help. What parallels do you see there between the companies, between WordPress and GitLab?
One of the more interesting parallels, Sid talked earlier about the market share for people self-hosting Git is now largely going to GitLab. WordPress reached that point where the majority of people running an open source CMS were using WordPress. It really was an inflection point because you got this kind of flywheel of companies supported, but community really maybe a bigger part of that led development, leading to more usage, leading to more developers, leading to more usage. So it's I think GitLab has the potential to have this sort of the exit velocity of open source. That kind of flywheel when the usage makes the product that much better.
So the other aspect that you mentioned is the remote side. So what are some angles into the distributed remote team, not the software, that you've been able to learn from Sid and vice versa so far?
Well, one of the things I've definitely learned from GitLab's approach, but it's early in the morning, is how transparent the company is. I actually submitted a pull request to one of Sid's pages. I just love that, whether it's a sales manual or sort of the internal onboarding documents or pretty much anything is out there for anyone to see. And that sort of challenged me to think about how we can open up more of what we talk about and do internally at Automatic. Because to be honest, there's no reason for much of it to be internal just to us. And we're very thoughtful about trying to not have any proprietary software in open source as much as possible. And I love to do that for more of our culture.
So as we move forward, you may have said it, but kind of give me a more clarified version of it. Like, what do you plan to do in terms of, as a board member, on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis? How do you plan to, or how will you help Sid do what he needs to do to grow this company?
Yeah, well, as a board member, there's a number of ways that you're involved. There's the governance aspects that Sid mentioned already, but more than anything, I want to be there to help with whatever he says he needs. Something that I've always appreciated as growing Automatic is not being, not sort of being like a helicopter board member where you're like hovering over the company all the time and bugging them, but being responsive and available whenever anything's needed. So the other thing I'm looking forward to doing is just learning a lot personally. This is a different side of open source that I haven't had as much experience in yet. And already in just our first board meeting, I was taking a ton of notes and Googling a ton and everything. So imagine I probably have a few more months of that still.
Well, Matt, we'll let you go. While we have you, we'd love to get you back on the show to talk about Gutenberg here in the near future.
Absolutely.
That would be a lot of fun. There's some really cool stuff coming around the corner.
Yeah, sounds like it. Sounds like it.
Always taking the time to get it in there, huh? The sale.
Top sales.
Right?
It'd be a good show.
Always be
It'd be a
closing.
good show.
Yes.
Right.
Well, thank you, Matt, so much for your time today, man, and appreciate you being on the board.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye. It's good talking to you.
Thanks, Matt.
Wow. Okay.
So we got Dave, we got Matt, we got a whole new exec team, lots of people added. You told us where the product's gone. In the last year, we talked about 10.0 and all the releases. We've seen some of the team and the board members. Let's get back to the application. Let's see what your master plan is, part 2. What you got?
Yeah, well, master plan part 2 is going from dev to complete DevOps.
Okay.
And I'm going to unpack that. We started with GitLab, and it was version control and an issue tracker. Just that, just a limited part of the development lifecycle. Now, last year, we announced our first master plan, and that was to make GitLab a complete development solution, add all the missing pieces. And we did that. In December of that year, in half a year, we managed to ship a complete development solution.
Hold on. So, master plan in September announced, or was that October?
It was in the summer.
Okay.
August, I think.
Call it August then. Summer master plan announced, December master plan achieved. That's either very impressive or you didn't quite shoot for the skies quite. What's the situation here?
I think we had a lot of parts that were ready.
Yeah.
So we were trending in that direction.
Gotcha.
We were on that trajectory, but also the team and the rest of the wider community put in a lot of hard work to make that happen. And it was a bit of a stretch. And I can see, if I think back about 8.15, parts of the new things we introduced took a little bit of polishing after that to be up to snuff. But we managed to kind of complete it, and then we try to iterate and make it better, a little bit better every release.
The important thing is you set some goals. Part of that master plan was actually telling the world what you're gonna do, right? Like these were in plans, in progress,
right? And
then a few months later,
shipped. I think it's very important to have a vision of where a product is going. If you don't have a vision, it's not very exciting for people to contribute to those important pieces. It's also not very exciting to work at the company or to join the company. If you don't have a goal to work together towards as a company, what is the goal? If you're not working as a team together on that, people start, they need something to do. They'll optimize for something. They'll start a turf war. You get politics, etc. Right. So I think it's very important to have a goal to strive towards that's ambitious and compelling.
Yeah. All right. Tell us about your goal then. What's your vision here?
So we want to go from just that dev cycle to the complete cycle, DevOps, and we want to complete that in 2018. We're giving ourselves 2 times as much time because we think
You're hedging.
No, it's a lot more work. It's a lot more work. Where this is coming from is that it used to be that development and operations used to be separate parts in a company, separate groups, and they had their own tools. And those tools were different. You needed different expertises to operate them. Now DevOps has said, look, those groups need to align, they need to become integrated. And what happened is people took the tools from the 2 different departments and they tried to glue them together. They duct taped the tools together, and that's what you see in traditional DevOps. it's the glue between the traditional developer tools and the traditional operating tools. And it's not a very good experience. You can see the duct tape and it keeps breaking the entire time. So we want to do something different. We want to extend the complete set of tooling we have for development and extend it all the way to operations. So it's not going to be gluing two sets of tools together. It's about creating a single application that does both. We like the definition of complete, having all the necessary and appropriate parts to make something whole or perfect. That's the ambition. And we think that has a lot of advantages. You get a single user interface, so you don't waste time switching between tools or concepts. All the phases are integrated together, so it's easy to go from one phase to the next. Developers and operators, if the roles are still separate, at least they have the same view on what's happening. They have a common way to work together. And we think there's a giant opportunity. There's over 100,000 organizations using GitLab, and they encode their best practices in the tool. The way they work is encoded in the tool. So the GitLab, the application, helps you to have a better DevOps process. Now, it's our job to make sure that's a single install, that updates, that don't break, and there's no integration work. And I think one of the reasons GitLab CI is so popular is because with other tools, you can install 2,000 plugins, but you upgrade it, and those don't work together. With GitLab, we add over 1,000 tests every month, we in the wider community, because we want to make sure all those integrations work. And when we release a new version, all those tests are run. So we make sure that it works together. And that should be the case for the whole DevOps lifecycle. It shouldn't be a team at your company trying to invent these tools. And last but certainly not least, one permission model. If you're a developer, you should be able to carry forward some of those permissions all the way into the operations lifecycle, so you have visibility there and you have influence there about what happens. So maybe give a bit of perspective and talk about an example. We want, in the end of 2018, a world where if you used to join a Fortune 500 company, it takes a week to set up like your complete environment. We want a Sally that joins a Fortune 500 company to get started on the first day. Have a complete IDE in GitLab that leverages our CI/CD infrastructure and that allows you to make a contribution, a merge request on the first day. Suppose Sally does that on a module. That module is automatically packaged, released, and because he changed the model, the module, the application that's dependent on it will also go through a release cycle. Now suppose there's a bug in the new code. GitLab should roll it out incrementally, and at 5% of users, the error rate spikes. It's rolled back. Sally gets a notification, goes into the merge request, sees it's rolled back, sees the relevant logs, sees the relevant graphs, is able to figure out what the bug was, fix it, and out goes the new change, and this time it's perfect. And what the takeaway is, instead of waiting a week to set up your development environment, on the first day you're contributing and you're learning that you can do so without hesitation. You can be confident that whatever you do, GitLab's got your back. So you can keep iterating and you can have a much faster cycle time. You can go much faster. That is the advantage we want to bring to the users of GitLab. And we think it aligns, this complete DevOps vision aligns really well with the priorities of development teams. Forrester has done a survey, and the 4 top priorities are to increase the automation, thank you, of the software development lifecycle tasks, to use more cloud-based development environments, to improve the customer experience, and to speed up the release cycle time. And we think these are not like different things. We think these fit in a hierarchy. They support the same thing. The hierarchy is, in order to improve the customer experience, you need to speed up the cycle time. In order to do that, you need to automate more of it. And in order to do that, you need a cloud-native application and environment. Let me unpack that a bit. Every company in the world needs to become great at delivering a great customer experience. Every company is becoming a software company, and if you're not fast enough transitioning to that, a startup will come and offer that better customer experience and disrupt you. And companies get that. We talk to a lot of Fortune 500 companies, and they say, look, we need to get better at this, and we need to get better fast. And to do that, we need to speed up our release cycle time. Because if you release every quarter, you think that the goal is there. It actually is there, but during the quarter, it moves there. Mm-hmm. So you're like 90 degrees off of where you want to be.
Right.
If you release every week, you can iterate and you can figure it out along the way that you were off on your initial estimation, and you can track it as it moves. So that's great, but in order to release every day or every week, you need to automate the whole software development lifecycle, so that you can't spend a lot of time releasing a new version if you have to do it so frequently. And in order to do that, you need to go cloud native. It used to be a world where we had bare metal servers or virtual machines that we changed in place, kind of like pets. But we need to go to a world where it's fungible. You no longer care about each particular machine. It should be a number, and it should be fungible. As you have a new update, you throw the old ones away and you install new ones. So these 4 things fit together. And GitLab can help with every single step. So to improve the customer experience, we're adding more monitoring to GitLab. To improve the cycle time, it's great that GitLab is an integrated solution. So you can go through the loop faster, and you can get feedback about where to speed up. To automate the software development lifecycle, all these transitions in GitLab, they come integrated out of the box. There's no automation for you to add. GitLab knows what you're doing. It has that automation already. And for GitLab going cloud native, we're really big on Kubernetes. And we're going to make sure our packaging, release, our configuration, and our monitoring are great on Kubernetes. So that's what we want to do. Those all roll up together, and combined, they make sure that GitLab with complete DevOps can help our users deliver the best customer experience.
So the Unix hacker in me is thinking, one big monolithic integrated thing. I thought small individual tools that are composable and do one thing well is the way to go.
I thought the same.
You thought the same?
I thought the same, and so did Dimitri, our CTO. So let me tell you how GitLab CI originated. We made the beginnings of GitLab CI, and Dimitri made it because he never wanted to upgrade a Jenkins server again in his life because it was so painful to make all the plugins work together. So he said what he said when he made GitLab, I'll make it myself. And he created GitLab CI, but we made a runner, the build agent on the slave servers. That agent was written in Ruby, and it was really hard to install, and it was not concurrent. So a guy from Poland, contributed that. And we figured out it was way better, and we made that the official runner. And we ended up hiring him. His name is Camille, and he's now leading our CI team.
Wow.
And Camille came to Dimitri and said, look, we're maintaining 2 projects. It's duplicate work. We should integrate them together. So he made that pitch, and Dimitri said exactly what you're saying now. Dimitri said, we need sharp tools. And he couldn't. Camille kept saying it, and Dimitri relented. And Dimitri went to me, I said the same thing, and we ended up integrating it, and it was so much better. And it had advantages beyond what we thought there would be. And we're really, really happy with how we saw these like emergent benefits when you integrate 2 products together.
So it was that change of heart that helped you feel good and have confidence in what you're pitching today in terms of your new plan?
Yeah, exactly. We figured out that it was greater than the sum of the parts. It wasn't just GitLab, it was GitLab CI is 2. It was like 5. It made the whole experience so much better. So we doubled down on that integrated vision. And I call it our secret. And it's like a Peter Thiel secret. It's not It's not that we keep it a secret. I'm telling you, we're telling the audience. No need. A good secret
This is not recorded, right?
Is something you tell everyone in the industry and nobody believes you. And that's what's happening. Nobody believes an integrated product is better, a complete product is better. But we know it because we experienced that with GitLab CI and with GitLab CD and with the integrated monitoring and with the integrated container registry and with the integrated review apps. So we know we're on the right track.
Another important point to make there is that it came from a contributor. Being so contributor-based as a company, as a culture, and kind of going back to some of the points we talked about earlier, but that came from, not Dimitri, he started it, sure, but Camille was a contributor, contributed this, offered the idea, and now he's an employee and managing CI.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a story in itself. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's that is indeed the case. Like and that's the best ideas. The best ideas is not something you can come up with. That's obvious, but things that evolve. We never set out to be a remote-only company. It evolved along the way.
Is Camille an isolated incident, or you hired many people after contributing?
We hired a lot. I think now top 20 of contributors is all working at GitLab.
Nice. Well, that means there's still 1,780 plus out
We
there.
got a few more hires to make.
But you're not hiring, right?
We're hiring.
You're
We're
hiring.
hiring, and not only developers to complete this vision, but also in all other departments.
Okay. So you showed us the vision. What's the actual product features? What's it going to look like to get that vision to come to life?
Yeah. So I'm very excited to show you more of what we're doing. And some of these features are already available in GitLab right now. They'll have the appropriate logos, but most of them are still planned. It's still something we're going to do in the future. In the first phase of the DevOps lifecycle, the plan phase, I'm really excited. We're going to add real-time editing to the description of issues. So what that means is that we used to have like an issue, and then we kind of had a live meeting about it. We went to a Google Doc, and then we pasted the contents of the Google Doc back in, or we left a link, and it's messy.
Sounds painful.
It sounds painful.
It is painful.
So why not make the issue the Google Doc? So we're going to make sure that a description is real time, so you can keep updating it. As comments are left, we want to make sure that the description describes what you're doing right now, and it's a continuous evolving thing.
So my only question on this one is, how soon can this feature ship? Because folks are going to absolutely love it, and I'm hoping it's like step one.
Yep. Every feature has a link below it. There's the issue, so you can chime in, but you can also help contribute. If you contribute, it ships sooner, but you can also follow along and subscribe to the issue and see what milestone it's planned for.
And for those tuning in, these links down here Sid just mentioned, we're going to PDF this presentation afterwards. You'll be able to click them, so don't feel like you have to read that URL and hunt it down. We'll have links for you
Unless
later
you're
on.
super excited.
Unless you're that excited, pause.
4199.
That's right.
All right, let's see what's next.
I wanted to highlight, we already got issue boards in GitLab. It's a replacement for things like Trello, and it's getting a lot of traction. People are really happy with it. Now, one thing we're going to add is portfolio management. So we're going to have epics, and epics can contain other epics and issues, and it's a way kind of to build a hierarchy of what you're going to do, so you can plan at a higher level. And those are also going to come with roadmaps, so you can have a planning for your company.
So these look like Gantt charts.
Yeah, Gantt charts. Well, I mean, it's kind of a bad word, right, to some degree. But
that's why we're calling them roadmaps. We solved it. No.
But you know, I've been in a situation before where you had developers and you had the business side of things. They want a Gantt chart. They want to know where we were going, when we would get there. And our tools just didn't integrate. And we couldn't provide them that. We wanted to, because we wanted to keep them informed, and now you're able to.
Yeah, and what we've seen at a lot of enterprise companies, they need that top-down visibility to know where they're going. And they have different tools. So they have like Rally or version 1, and then they have like Jira, and then they have like Trello boards. And it's a lot of work to integrate between all of those.
Going from one place to another.
Yeah, and then the project managers end up having an Excel spreadsheet where they keep another administration. So some people are using like 4 different tools, but it's the same planning. So you end up like repeating yourself. So this, you can opt not to use it, that's fine. We're not going to force you to have Gantt charts. But for the people that need it, it allows them to keep their planning process dry and to have it always up to date.
Yeah, that's important.
Now, in the create stage, we have some really exciting things. We got a multi-file editor. It used to be that if you committed from the web interface, you could only modify 1 file and make a commit from that. We're going to ship with the editor from VS Code. It's called the Monaco editor. And it's going to allow you to open multiple files to have all the features you're used to in an editor and then commit those together. And actually, it's already in GitLab. It's just such a bad quality right now that it's behind the cookie wall. So you cannot use it yet. We're going to try to get it to alpha in either 10.1, 10.2. And it's setting the stage for the next step. And the next step is a web IDE. So we want to make sure in GitLab you have that editor. You already have a web terminal. We're going to add a preview screen. So no matter where you are, no matter whether you're on a Chromebook, you can open up an editor and start coding.
So last year when we talked, it was about integrating into existing developer environments, whether it's Vim or Sublime Text or what have you, Atom, VS Code, I could go on, and other actual IDEs. Those are more just editors. This seems like a change of pace where you're saying, okay, we're not going to go that route anymore. We're going to do a web IDE. What changed your mind about that decision?
Yeah, the problem is it's really hard to support multiple platforms. So when we saw VS Code and the quality of it, we were convinced we had to jump on that. So we think this is a great first step. And we also, we don't have the illusion that everyone will use this all the time, but it's great if you're starting out with programming. It's great if you want to contribute to a project, but just do a drive-by commit, do a one-time thing. It's great when you don't have your regular laptop, you're logged in from somewhere else.
So worth pointing out, this is not a required usage type of a thing. Anybody who's still, you can pry my terminal from my cold dead hands.
Yep.
You're not going to.
We're not going to force you. Cloud IDEs are a bit of a startup graveyard. Like many people try to monetize that and have an enterprise force it on all their developers, and that doesn't work. So this is a feature we're really excited about, but we don't think we're going to monetize it by having people roll it out and force everyone to use it. It's going to be this. It's a convenience thing.
You mentioned VS Code. Like the core of that is going to be inside of here, or you're going to reuse code there. VS Code is a cross-platform desktop app. You're talking about a web IDE. So it looks like this is just missing the shell, and maybe we could have our own little GitLab desktop.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe someone will make it. We don't have any plans right now.
Okay.
We might do something else. This is what we're planning right now, but yeah, it's all web technology, so might end up. Another feature where that if you're in love with your terminal, we're going to make sure that you can use your terminal and only your terminal to add a project to GitLab. So you push your code, and GitLab automatically creates a project, and it kicks off auto DevOps. So it's going to build the project, test it, quality, etc. I think it's going to be neat to have that effect. I really loved the first time I saw Heroku. It was awesome. Just push your code and it gets deployed, and we want to have the same flow in GitLab.
Worth noting for us nerds out there that we're making use of a flag for Git that I didn't know exists before I saw this slide, which is -O. You can send options to the server, and that's not like a special GitLab version of Git. That's just in the Git client.
Yep.
And you're using that to set permissions on that repository, so that's kind of cool.
Thanks. And the next phase is the verify phase. We already got GitLab CI. That's well received. Now we added code quality in GitLab Enterprise Edition Starter, where you can see what got better about the code, what got worse. And we're going to add something else. It's a license check. So if your organization has certain licenses they can't use, GitLab's going to scan your dependencies and going to notify you if you added a dependency to your project that has a dependency that's not compatible with your licenses.
Very cool.
Two other things I'm really excited about is performance testing. So you made a code change and it increased or decreased performance, you're going to see that. But also security scanning. So this means automatically running vulnerability analysis against the code base and against the review app. So static application security scanning and dynamic application security scanning out of the box as part of auto DevOps without you having to like run 15 tools and set them up some other way, having them part of the DevOps lifecycle.
Awesome.
I think what you said before, Jerod, about this was that how everything comes back to the merge request. You know, like all this, anything happening around the processes here we just gone through, the merge request kind of gets updated every single time. So that's like one canonical source of knowledge of what's happened along the way.
Yep. Yeah, I think what we want to do in GitLab is bring it all back. So we want you to go from that epic to that issue to that merge request and then see how that merge request affected your code quality, your monitoring, your performance, whether it had to be reverted or not. That should be the central place so that it shouldn't be about a chat channel you hang out in to see whether your code deploys correctly. The automation should take care of that.
Sure. Or even having to go to several different places to get this information. It kind of goes back to the execs, you know, with the Gantt charts, like just having to go somewhere else or having several different tools. It's tedious. It needs to be in one place.
Right. The disparate tools would have information here, information there. You end up grabbing it, put it in an Excel spreadsheet.
It's very fatiguing.
Copy pasting things.
Yeah.
Here it's just like in one spot, which would be awesome. It might be into the weeds a little bit, but like, if you guys have you know, figured out things in terms of like what databases you're going to use for security vulnerabilities and like how the performance testing would work? Or are we still kind of in the planned phase for that?
Well, there's an issue link, and Dimitri, our CTO, is on this. So he's already started, and the first thing to implement is something that's very familiar to us. It's Brakeman. It's a Ruby gem that detects vulnerabilities in all your other gems. And we're going to add more. We're going to add ones for all the different languages there are, and then we're going to add other tools. We're looking at tools like Nessus for like the dynamic application security scanning. But like usual at GitLab, we're going to take it step by step and iterate.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Now, one other feature we're going to add in the CI space is flaky test detection. And we're adding that also because we need it. We're adding, with the wider community, over 1,000 tests every month to GitLab. So if you're running 25,000 tests, even if a test fails 1 in 100 times, it's still going to have an impact on your project. But it's really hard to figure out which tests are failing because you kind of need to see across 100 builds. And GitLab's going to keep track of that. So you can fix the tests that are the most flaky.
Nobody likes flaky tests.
Nobody likes
I write flaky tests all the time, so.
You can have ours. You can have ours.
You could argue that I like them, because if I didn't like them, why would I keep writing them, right?
Well, again, this brings it back to making it easy to see an index of recent tests, their failure rate, you know, if they've failed in the last 24 hours, how many times, or even the last time it failed. I mean, that's having an index of that to be able to go and triage that and look into issues, or just to make your test better, your suite better. You can go and see the failing tests and it's a point of investigation, rather than like not knowing where they're at.
Rather than saying in a chat channel, this test failed for me, did it fail for you, etc.
What time zone are you in? That's the first question that you have to ask everybody. As time is always the problem, right?
I agree with that. Now, in the packaging stage, we already have a container registry, and it's awesome, and people use it, and it's great. From CI, you can push your container up, and then in the CD stage, you can pull it down all without sending a lot of credentials around, because GitLab knows who you are and what your permissions are. And it's being used a lot, but not everyone is doing containers. And GitLab is going to have great support for cloud native, but we're not going to force you. So if you're still using Java or other things in a non-cloud native way, we want to make sure you can store your jar files in GitLab. So this is, if you're now using like Sonar type Nexus or Artifactory, we want to offer a great alternative to that inside GitLab. So we're going to start with Java and Maven and build from there, support more languages, JavaScript with NPM, etc., to make sure that's well supported in GitLab itself. So you don't have to like run your own private Ruby gems mirror, etc. You can do that in GitLab. In the release features, we already got great support for environments, all the different environments you deploy to. And there's a deployment history there, so you can easily like redeploy or roll back a change. Now we're going to extend that. And the way to think about it is we already got deploy boards and canary deploys. So you can see a change being rolled out on Kubernetes. You can see a canary deploy, and a canary deploy is deploying to 1% or 5% of your user base to see if there's anything going wrong, so you're not affecting everyone at the same time. Now we're gonna extend that with incremental rollouts. That means automatically going from a canary deploy from 1% to 5% to 25% to 50% on a timed sequence. So you don't have to like increase the numbers yourself, it's happening. And then the great thing is that if it rolls out and there's a problem, we're going to do a rollback. So GitLab will detect if there's too many errors and will roll back to the previous version.
So in my experience, not all deploys are created equally. And sometimes it's a really small thing, and sometimes it's a big change with sweeping database migrations or schema changes, making rollbacks very, very difficult. How would it plan to handle those circumstances?
Yeah, well, if you're doing a canary deploy, then by definition, both versions are able to cope with the new database. So for example, you're only adding indexes, only adding columns instead of like renaming them.
Right.
At GitLab, we now try to write our code. So first we add a new column, we go to the new version, and then only a version later, we kind of drop the old one.
Phasing out the change.
Phasing out, so you could do that. But also there's gonna, maybe it's not time efficient for you to do that, and there's gonna be changes that can be reverted, and there will be a way to tell GitLab that.
Probably a way to say, hey, don't canary with this one at all, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a
canary,
one.
please.
And we talked about that rollback. So this is, to your point, it's going to be brought back to the merge request. So in the merge request, Adam, you're going to be able to see, hey, the error rate exceeded a certain percentage. We roll back. You gotta have another look at this.
Get it all in that one spot.
I love how the merge request is like that central point to it. It's like it's constantly being appended to new information as things happen.
Yeah.
It's like a ledger.
Yeah, I think.
Blockchain.
If you put blockchain in there,
Yeah, we're going to do an ICO.
You can raise another round.
Yeah. Dave, what do you think about an ICO? Well, the
blockchain merge request.
Laughter amongst the group.
I think that the hard part is like pressing that merge button. That's what's going wrong. Like companies have so much code that is like a work in progress, and that's like inventory. You want to get the inventory down. And you get the inventory down by making it easy to press the merge button. And you can do that in two ways. Give more information before you press it, or make it cause less problems,
risky.
Make it less risky after you press it.
Or do both.
So we're gonna, with auto DevOps, we're giving a lot of information up front. You get the review app, you get the code quality, etc. And then this is, after you press it, make sure GitLab has your back. Because if we make it easier if we limit like the blast radius, the number of users that are affected, for what time they're affected, you're going to have an easier time merging that and decreasing your cycle time.
GitLab has your back. Good pull quote there.
I like that.
Okay, let's keep going.
GitLab has your back.
Another thing we're adding is first-class clusters. So we're going to make it very easy to add a Kubernetes cluster to your project or to your group. And you can run those anywhere. You can run them on-prem, you can run them on AWS, but we are a big fan of Google Cloud Platform, and they offer a great container engine. So you can spin up a cluster there, and your project's going to be aware that it can run CI there and builds and tests and everything.
It's probably worth emphasizing that you're trying to go complete DevOps, but not complete hosting as well. So you're not trying to become a host at this point.
Yep. We're not going to host your code. We're going to allow you to use Kubernetes. We're not going to try to reinvent Kubernetes. We're not going to try to resell Kubernetes. Like, there's also platforms like Heroku that kind of resell you AWS. We think that's not our business model. We think users want freedom in where they where they host their code.
Cloud,
They want to have a direct relationship, direct billing relationship. They want to have the discounts that are available, etc. We don't want to do that for you. You're going to have the freedom to host anywhere, any place. GitLab's just going to make it much easier to adopt Kubernetes. And this is how it looks. After you add a cluster, you're gonna even get like monitoring on the cluster itself. So you can see from GitLab whether there's a problem there, you spun up too much CPU or memory. Another feature that is a bit complex, but I think really useful for the enterprise is release trains. What you're seeing at larger companies, they have a code base and they need to release really frequently. And they want to make sure that whatever they release is tested exactly as it would be after the merge. So in GitLab by default, we test the feature branch. What you could also test is the merge with the feature branch and master. So you're 100% sure all the tests pass on that. The problem is, every time you change master, you'd have to retest everything.
Right.
Well, that gets out of hand pretty quickly. So what you then do, what people now do is they have like a chat channel and they say, well, I'm change 1 and someone is change 2 and change 2 merges in the changes from 1 and then runs the test. And the third person merges in master and 1 and 2 and 3 and they run the test. And that's now a lot of manual hoopla. And we want to automate that. You just say merge in GitLab and GitLab's going to know you prefer to test the end result and it's going to queue it. And it's going to make sure that the right mergers are tested.
So it's like a zero configuration queue for your pushes.
Exactly.
And then they get deployed out when it makes sense.
Yep.
You don't have to think about it.
Yep.
Sounds cool.
Another feature is pipeline views. We want to give you more visibility in what's where. So you're going to see like this is basically your inventory. All the merges, all the code changes you have and what environment they're at. So you can see how they progress from stage to stage. Now the penultimate stage is the configuration stage. And we already have in GitLab, we have secret variables. So those allow you to set variables to pass on to your containers. And they're super useful. You can have different credentials on them. You can have them as a developer, as a master, and they're used a lot. Now, what we're going to add is better support for scaling. Right now, if you want to scale it on Kubernetes, you got to set environmental variables. We're going to make that easier. We're going to allow you to auto-scale with Kubernetes much easier. And then another thing we'll extend is ChatOps. All the things you see here that GitLab bot is doing is already part of GitLab. And what ChatOps does, ChatOps allow you to kind of talk to GitLab from a chat channel. And that allows everyone to stay on the same page about what is happening. And we want to extend that. For example, you see here a new command, backend scale production to 10. So suppose you're not auto-scaling, you can scale from that chat channel. And we're going to add a lot more operation features to ChatOps. So we've arrived at the last stage, and that's the monitoring stage. And there's a lot of innovation happening there. We're already shipping GitLab with Prometheus out of the box. And Prometheus detects like your environment, it detects your application, it can show you how you're doing, what's your latency, what's your error rate. We're going to extend that with tracing. It's going to be based on the open tracing standard because we believe distributed microservices are the future. So if you offer an application to end users, there's going to be lots of different microservices that work together to fulfill a request. But if there's a problem, you want to see a trace amongst all of them. And we think open tracing is a great standard, and we're going to add support for that inside GitLab, so you don't have to leave GitLab to do a trace. Another thing we'll add is auto alert. So by default, GitLab's going to have a sense of what metrics make sense to alert on. And you no longer have to, like, for every new project you start, define like the 10 common things you did for the other projects. GitLab's going to come with sensible defaults, and if they get exceeded, you get a warning. Another thing is an ops view. So getting more visibility on all your different environments and seeing where there is a problem so you can focus on the right environment. Another really big thing is auto log. So I think if you have metrics in your application, everyone does, you also have, you don't only have events, you also have the log files generated by the application. And as you get more serious about your application, you need to aggregate those and search those. And frequently now it's a different application, an application that didn't know when you exactly deployed, an application that takes you out of your flow. So we want to integrate that into GitLab so that GitLab tells you exactly what's happening, and you can search through your log files. One thing that's already in GitLab is cycle analytics. So cycle analytics shows you exactly how long it takes you through every step of the DevOps lifecycle. And if you want to reduce your cycle time, this is the metric you should look at. Like, where are we getting stuck? What's not going fast enough? And cycle analytics can tell that because GitLab is one data store. We know how you went from the planning phase to the monitoring phase, and GitLab can tell you more. And it's very exciting. We got the first community contribution on cycle analytics.
It's a good example of the benefits of integration.
Yep.
Because you have all of that available.
This is only possible in GitLab. All the other companies are like, if you use multiple products, you have to like create your own data warehouse, get the data from all those products, and then do an analysis on it. With GitLab, you get that out of the box.
It certainly makes retrospectives that much more fun because you got a lot more information.
Yep.
Yeah. Less guessing, more looking at
Less guessing, like, hey, come on, how can we reduce our inventory? How can we have less like code in progress?
Yeah.
You look here, where's it getting stuck?
Where's the bottlenecks, yeah.
And last, but certainly not least, business metrics. So out of the box, you want to do a better job of monitoring how your app is doing, what's your customer satisfaction, what's your conversion rate. If you want to create a better customer experience, you need to get these things right, and want to add as much intelligence to GitLab so that out of the box, when you have a new application, it starts measuring all these things. So that's how we hope, and we will in 2018 make sure that GitLab becomes complete DevOps. It's going to help our users deliver a better customer experience.
That's a lot of stuff.
That is a lot of stuff.
I was counting the planned label as you go there, and I just lost count.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's why we think we'll need a year this time, not half a year.
Well, tell us more, because even in a year, I'm seeing all these things here, and I'm thinking, how the heck?
These are all
pull this off?
businesses, individual businesses that you're essentially pulling into GitLab by itself.
Yeah. Well, one thing, don't go out alone. Take this, and take this is the wider community. We hope that, although we announced the plan, we won't be the only ones contributing to it.
Right.
So, all the people viewing, this is what we intend to do, but we can't do it alone. So please contribute and help us. One other way in which we're going to do it, we're going to use some of the money we just raised to expand our teams. We're going to create more teams to work on this. We're hiring, and we're going to accelerate our hiring. And then the third thing is our secret weapon. It's iteration. Not all of these things will be perfect out of the box. Mm. Like Autolog is not going to hold a candle to Splunk in its first iteration. But we're gonna iterate on it. We're gonna leverage open source. We're gonna probably leverage Elasticsearch and other things to improve it over time. And then when it gets to a certain state, we see more and more contributions from the wider community coming in. So that's the plan. Work really hard ourselves. Start with the first iteration, and then work with the wider community to get it there.
I asked you about speed. I was going to ask you about quality because, like Adam said, there's entire businesses devoted to many of these. Even just the security aspect alone is a lot of work. And so the question was, well, can you get it done fast, but also can you do as well or good enough to make a compelling offering against some of these companies that are dedicated to it? And it sounds like iteration is the answer to that.
Iteration is the answer, and it's hard for us because we were kind of doubting ourselves, like, are we doing good by not only doing version control, but also doing CI? And we had the feeling we were on the right path. But the Forrester survey we showed earlier, where they said, no, not only do you have like a competitive CI offering, it's actually best in class. So you have all these competitors that have 10 times more paid people working on something only on that than our team. GitLab's able to be better, and that's because of the way we work and because of the wider community supporting it. And that gives us the confidence that we can get to a best in class for each of these products.
Maybe another aspect to this too is this grand plan, yet again to come back to this stage and share with the world what you're going to do for the next year. That's enough. But then also, how did you get there? How did you know this is what you need to build?
It's a lot of people contributing to this. We got great product people. We got shout out to Mark Punsak, our head of product, who was really influential in like how we thought about this. It's also talking with customers. Like we're seeing a lot of customer comments in the issue tracker. We talk to them. We go out. We have lunch and learns, etc. We have events. It's our users, like each one of these has issues, and some of the issue numbers are like, I saw for the real-time editor, I saw 4,000 in there. That's an old issue. We've been talking for a while. There's people contributing ideas. I think, for example, the real-time editor, there's different frameworks that are suggested, and I think we now found a framework which we're happy with. So it didn't come out of nowhere. It's about, these are the best ideas we're discussing, and there's over 10,000 feature proposals at our issue tracker. We look at each and every one of them, and people chime in, and these are the best ideas that we think will help people improve their customer experience.
You mentioned frameworks there. You talked about VS Code, Monaco, you talked about Prometheus. What kind of role do you play, not so much just as a user, but maybe even a participant to some of those open source projects that you'll now begin to build GitLab on?
Yeah. With GitLab, we try not to, one of our values is boring solutions. So when we started in the DevTools space, many investors were hesitant. They say, you can't make any money there because developers just open source everything. And instead of having that be something that holds us back, we try to leverage it. So GitLab builds on other open source technologies like Git, like Prometheus, and by orchestrating that, by combining that, by making that one integrated package, that's our added value. And we try to contribute back. We mainly contribute back by releasing GitLab Community Edition. But we have a person now, Christian, who is contributing to Git. He's trying to integrate LFS as a core part of Git because we think it shouldn't be a plugin. It should be a part of Git proper. So he's working on that. We got a team of people working on Prometheus for GitLab, but they also contribute back to Prometheus itself. We were part of Ruby together. We try to be a good citizen of the wider ecosystem. But the core thing is just making sure we open source as much as we can every month.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. They get the recognition of being something that GitLab is using directly, which would feel pretty good for me for my open source project. They get patches back on things that make sense and are improvements or bug fixes. And then GitLab Community Edition gets better and better because of their tool. And so that's the beauty of open source, is it all just kind of, all the goodness flows around.
Yeah. This might be jumping the gun a little bit, but we have some questions from the Q&A part of this.
Awesome.
Christian Munich at CMUENCH on Twitter asked a similar kind of question, but maybe a little bit deviation from it. How will this new funding round impact your open source activities? So not exactly what we're talking about here, but in that realm.
So we plan to keep doing exactly what we were doing. So the majority of features will go into the open source one. Our complete scope will be part of the open source edition. And you can read more about how we think about it on our stewardship page, about gitlab.com/stewardship. And nothing changed there. That will stay the same. And I think with getting Matt Mullenweg to join our board, we ensure that not only on a company level, but also on a board level, that the voice of open source and that the added value of a community is well represented. And thanks for asking the question.
Well, sounds like we're into the Q&A, so let's do this.
Yeah, let's just go right into the Q&A.
We've been collecting questions online. And the first one's for Barbie, so Barbie's going to come back out.
Barbie, welcome back.
Hi, thank you. Good to be back.
So we got Carolina
Bautista?
Yes, on Platzi, asked to you directly, what's the biggest challenge to you growing your team?
Well, I'm going to assume we're talking about the GitLab team, but I think the biggest challenge to growing the team is just making sure you get the right people. But I'm reading this question as the biggest challenge to growing our team, not with growing our team, which is slightly different. So I think that we need to make sure that we're getting a great diversity of hires, a great diversity in our panel that we're interviewing with, and that we're getting people from a wide variety of areas across the world and not staying focused in just one center of the world. So I think that those are what I'll be very focused on in building the team, as well as I think at GitLab I can expand a little further. My priorities in growing the team are to look at the way we do performance management and reviews, the way we do compensation, and again, our inclusiveness and diversity at the company.
Excellent.
Very good. Well, let's move down the list here. Maybe we should reiterate, are we still taking questions? I believe we are. You can still submit your questions on Platzi or with the hashtag
YouTube,
Complete
Facebook,
DevOps on
Twitter.
YouTube. Get them out there. We have a lot of great questions here, but we will continue to take them as they come in. Up next, we have Anonymous. This is the hacking organization, correct?
Yeah, I presume so.
I presume so. Anonymous user on Platzi asks, how well will GitLab help consolidate an organization's existing extensive CI/CD tools? Someone's got their cursor on it. That might be somewhat disjointed.
Yeah, we're seeing that people are using GitLab CI to consolidate the tools they had in place. So where they had multiple tools before, with GitLab they can consolidate. GitLab CI has the flexibility for developers to self-serve while still having the advanced features like cross-project pipelines that were previously only available to the build teams. So many times CI needs to do a lot of things. It needs to like auto scale on the cloud to have enough capacity. But you also need like specific machine instances like OS X, ARM architectures, the same machine every time for the performance build. Like GitLab CI allows for all of that. So you should be able to consolidate on GitLab CI, and many organizations are doing so, and they're saving a lot of time and money that they spent before on orchestrating all of this.
You want to take this next one?
I'm trying to choose which one might be best to go for next. I think if we keep going down the route of maybe CI, there was one down here for that. Let's take this one instead from Rebecca. I was kind of curious about this as well. Your Gitter acquisition at the beginning of this year was big news. Could you tell us about what we can expect from GitLab plus Gitter in this next year?
Good question.
Yeah. So we acquired Gitter, and first of all, the team's done a great job of like keeping that running. They also have other responsibilities at GitLab, which they're helping with. We open sourced the source code at the deadline we promised. That was, I think, this summer. And the next step is to have better GitLab support in Gitter.
I called dibs on this one because it's potentially controversial. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, not really. You'll be just fine. Not anonymous. David Peters.
Don't say sorry.
Gosh darn it. David Peters. Oh, we're an hour in.
DM Peters 63 on Platzi
says, is this a tech event or an enterprise pat on the back event?
It's whatever you make of it. I think a bit both. Look, on one hand, this is our strategy going forward. On the other hand, we have to do a better job explaining to enterprises why GitLab is a good option. And I think we did a good job with the wider community creating a great product. But if we're not able to articulate that and to convince enterprises they should switch, we don't have a sustainable business model. So we've made great inroads with the enterprise, and if you're seeing a lot of enterprise content in this presentation and a lot of us articulating why GitLab is great for the enterprise, that's intentional, and we'll continue to do that. but it won't come at the cost of keep us shipping great features every month on the 22nd.
Vincent on Facebook asks, I didn't know that Matt's audio cut out. Do we still have Matt? Is Matt gone? Matt is gone, right?
I am here.
Oh, he's still here.
We do have Matt. Matt, so I guess your audio cut out earlier, and Vincent on Facebook wants you to reshare why you decided to join GitLab's board.
Oh, earlier what I said, I don't remember exactly what I said, so maybe watch the video, but just that as a company, GitLab's very excited to me because I believe that distributed work is the future of work, and GitLab's actually taking some of these things even further from automatic. And I think automatic being sort of a little bit ahead in terms of people, and also GitLab being, I think, a bit ahead in terms of transparency and a few other approaches. We have a lot to learn from each other. And the second is, I believe the integrated approach that GitLab takes to CI, deployment, everything is the future of development. And so being both the combination intersection of future of work and future of development is pretty exciting. And I'm excited to be involved.
Thank you, Matt.
No problem.
All right, next up, an anonymous user with the handle SF. So
Nice.
make of that what you will. Asks,
It's a super fan of GitLab.
a super
folks.
fan, of
Super
course.
fan. There you go.
Will GitLab do something similar to what Facebook did with PHP, hack in parentheses, to make it faster and more reliable?
Right now, we don't have anything there. Shopify is doing a great job. They released a gem to reduce boot times, and we implemented that. So we're a consumer, not a creator of those things. With GitLab, when we find performance-sensitive things, we tend to rewrite them in Go. So right now, a major effort underway is Gitly, and it makes sure that our file servers are not just serving the files, but they can actually they become Git servers. They serve Git calls with the appropriate monitoring, and that's mainly written in Go. So that's the direction we're taking. We appreciate all the efforts on the way. Ruby free, 3 times faster.
Right.
We hope it will make GitLab 3 times faster, but we're not working on that as a company.
The next question is from Mason Chase on Facebook asking, is there a plan for a web UI merge tool? Also says, we could always use a more powerful merge tool built into GitLab. So given the multi-file editor, your new web IDE, what's the plan there for a merge tool?
Yeah, I think GitLab was the first one that had a merge conflict resolution tool in GitLab. And I think that's being improved continuously. We keep iterating on that. I think by now it's pretty good. If there's anything more you'd like to see, I'd say open up a feature proposal if there isn't one already.
Here's a good one from Rebecca, because it has to do with the integration side, and just when you integrate, there's only one thing. And so she says, isn't it risky to put all your eggs in one basket? As in, if GitLab was down and you use it for everything, then you're stuck.
Yeah, look, we're doing a really good job of making sure that GitLab, if you run your own installation with tens of thousands of users, is very stable. We're coming out with GitLab Geo, GitLab Disaster Recovery, GitLab HA. So I think we can keep GitLab out. I think one point of confusion is when people say, look, GitLab offers all these things. I don't want to give up my old tools. So we want to make sure that GitLab has best-in-class support for Slack, for Jira, for Jenkins. You don't have to give up all these tools when you move to GitLab. We'll support them. And we're doing a really good job, and we want our Jira support to be better than in Atlassian's products themselves. So we want to make sure that we have everything in GitLab. Doesn't mean we expect you to throw everything you have right now away. We want to convince you to use GitLab. We don't want to force you.
Let's take this one from, I believe it's Rolliver 4, or Oliver 4 on Platzi. Any plans on implementing user/customer approvals for issues? Also mentions, somebody moved it on me. Oh, there it goes. It's up there. Some public companies require approvals and sign-offs from users and managers. So, you got that?
Yeah, I think what we already have in GitLab Enterprise Edition is multiple approvers. So if you have a merge request, you can specify who should be an approver for that. You can have fixed people. You can have a group of people that has to get to a quorum. So there's really advanced functionality in there already. And you can add, if customers have a GitLab account, you can add them to it. So I'd say check that out.
Matthias Wiesen, M. Wiesen on Platzi, asks, will GitLab integrate with Kubernetes / Docker security scanning / compliance, such as twist lock?
Yeah, I think where we're going, it's to add those things to GitLab itself. GitLab has a container registry. You're running your build in GitLab. We want to make the security scan part of auto DevOps, so it should run by default. And we're looking at all the different tools that are available, like Claire from CoreOS. I want to take the best tools and make sure they run by default in GitLab. So that's our strategy there.
Nose
big?
Maybe it is nose big. I'm not sure, but it's NOSBIG, which is pretty close to nose big. On Platzi says, will there be tighter awareness of integration with Ansible, with GitLab, perhaps in CI/CD?
Yeah, I think there's already Ansible scripts to like deploy GitLab, and with GitLab CI you're flexible. So if you want to call on Ansible scripts to do the heavy lifting, that works. For deployment itself, I think what we support by default in GitLab is going to go more and more container to the container way, to go cloud native, to use containers and environmental variables and technologies like Console and Vault to do the configuration. And I think that's where the configuration story of GitLab is going.
So we have another anonymous Platzi user. This question was asked during the section about first-class clusters, and you might have to imply or infer some of the context. So he says, what about other cluster types?
Yep. So we're going to have great support for Kubernetes, and that means that we also support OpenShift, because that's mainly based on Kubernetes. Now there's also Docker, there's Mesosphere, there's a lot of other technologies out there. We think Kubernetes is winning, and we think that the other vendors will start adopting Kubernetes if they haven't already, like Mesosphere announcing support for Kubernetes. So we're all in Kubernetes, and for now we don't have any plans to add a lot of support. However, it's open source. If you contribute it, and if it's good, we'll merge it.
Matthias Wiesen again, M. Wiesen on Platzi asks, are there plans to have built-in monitoring via Prometheus to analyze API requests and or underlying code to identify bottlenecks in code?
Yeah, for sure. We want to make sure that the built-in Prometheus is flexible and you can add your own metrics. If your API server is a separate microservice, it will automatically show you the request rate and things like that. So that's definitely things that should be in GitLab.
Maybe we can give that to you.
You can, I think.
This next one sounds like a plant. I don't know, I might have came from the inside because it's such a softball. So Hiroshi question on Platzi. How do I join the GitLab team?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I think that the best thing to do is to run, not walk, to aboutgitlab.com and click on our jobs and see what their interests you, and then please do apply. And our team will get back to you very quickly on next steps once you do so.
Very good.
But I would also
any
say,
particular tangible steps?
well, I would say that I would recommend, and this is just a general recommendation in life, before you apply, take a look at our handbook online, take a look at our values online, make sure this is actually the right fit for you. I do believe that the value of transparency around our culture and our values is such that you can also self-select in or out if our values don't align with yours. But I do hope that for the majority of the population, they do align. And educate yourself on what GitLab is doing and what it's like to work at GitLab. And then if it still interests you, then certainly do apply. But through the process, you will get there. But I think it's great to be proactive in doing that research.
Good answer.
Great. Next up is Linus Lewandowski on YouTube asking, have you considered going multi-platform for complete DevOps, making the apps deployable on Kubernetes, but also AWS EC2, GC Cloud instances, OpenStack, etc.?
Yeah, we looked into that. We think that in order to automate the software development lifecycle, you need to go cloud native. You need to, and we think cloud native means a container scheduler, and we think Kubernetes is the winning container scheduler. And then, so we want to focus our efforts there. Lots of people use GitLab to deploy to virtual machines on AWS and all the other platforms, and that's not going to go away. That's going to be a great experience too. But many of these advanced features, like the incremental rollouts, it's much, much easier with a container scheduler. You can tell Kubernetes, like, I want to do a canary for this. And therefore, we're using those platforms. So we don't have to invent it. We can just leverage what's already great and what people already are building and testing.
This question comes from D. Stalder on Platzi. Are there any hooks planned for other performance monitors that aren't Prometheus? We already have a corporate deploy of New Relic.
Yeah. Look, GitLab works fine if you just add your New Relic agent in there and you set your environmental variables with the New Relic credentials. That will work fine. So many people are using New Relic and things like that with GitLab, and all these things are things that happen automatically on top. But if you want to use your existing tools, that's totally possible, and it works the same way as it would with any other tool.
So it's like the perfect recipe, like any framework, but you can swap out whatever you want.
Yeah.
If you decide to use something different. Obviously.
Yeah, I think I used to be a Rails developer, and it comes with sensible defaults. And if you follow the happy path with GitLab, you should have to care only about your application and programming that, and not about all your tools. But if you want to customize, you should be able to customize. If you want to take our other DevOps scripts, you want to customize them, it's right there. It's just another Helm chart. Everything is customizable. We don't want to fix you in, you have to do it the GitLab way. No, we're going to make it super easy to start off the GitLab way, but as you graduate, beyond that, we want to make sure you can stay in GitLab. And as a developer, I've used Heroku, but it was frustrating that when I graduated beyond here, I needed functionality that wasn't in there. I needed to move away and want people to stay at GitLab and run the most complex apps on it.
Perhaps as a follow-up, and to clarify for me so I understand it correctly, say that GitLab builds tools on top of what Prometheus is offering for monitoring, and so they sit up here, and then somebody wants to come and use New Relic instead of Prometheus or some other tool to provide those types of analytics or monitoring. Are they then opting out of all of the cool stuff that you're building over here, or are they plugging into that and you will sit on top of it and continue to work just fine?
Yeah, so if that happens, you'll opt out of the built-in monitoring in GitLab. If you want to use New Relic instead, that's fine, but you won't be able to see the graphs in GitLab for now. Look, if someone contributes New Relic support, great. If it meets the definition of done, we'll merge it. But for now, it's the monitoring part assumes Prometheus, and Prometheus is great technology. It's made for cloud native. It's made for microservices. And we're able to ship it as a part of GitLab, so that's what's really important, that out of the box, when you download the GitLab, the Omnibus package, everything just works, and we want to keep that experience, and we can do that with proprietary tools.
Next question is, guest on Platzi asked, how is GitLab, and I'm not really sure I understand the full spectrum of this question, but I think I get it, but how is GitLab planning to use the wide source of tools? Is it going to be plugins, which are available as a plug-in-and-play model? Is that talking about monolith architecture kind of thing? Okay, that's what I thought.
I think so. We have a pretty unique take on this. So many other, our competitors. So GitHub is building a marketplace where people can extend their SaaS offering. Atlassian offers you to add plugins. We believe that as an open source offering, we have a unique opportunity to do neither of those, but to have people contribute to GitLab itself. So the reason that there's over 1,000 tests being added to GitLab every month is because there's a lot of functionality being added to GitLab that otherwise would be in a plugin. And a plugin sounds great until you have to upgrade with 10 different activated plugins, because those plugins aren't going to be tested. So now you're the first one to have to upgrade this combination of plugins, and you're going to run into problems. We don't want you to run into problems. We want you to upgrade your GitLab server every month, not necessarily on the 22nd, but at least that month. And to do that, it needs to be rock solid, and we can only do that if we test. And we can only do that if those tests are part of the core platform. So with GitLab, we encourage you to add code as a project service instead of as a plugin.
So this question might be for Matt, and it might be more directly than I asked him earlier on from Bam Bam Bool. What's up, Bam Bam Bool? When will WordPress switch to GitLab with its source code? Just get out there and straight ask it.
Wow. We should hire this person in sales.
You'll see an application later. It says Bam Bam Bool on it. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah. I mean, to go geeky on WordPress for a second, like this year it's really all about Gutenberg. And so we've explicitly put like a stop on any other non-Gutenberg, non-REST API, non-CLI, and non-customization stuff. So we said those are the 4 focuses for the year, and everything else, including tooling, is off the table. So it's not something that will happen, nothing at all will happen in 2017, but especially assuming Gutenberg goes well, it's definitely an area we want to look at improving in the future.
And we're seeing some other open source projects switching. So GNOME is now in the process of switching to GitLab. So we're really excited to work with them and add the features they need to our open source edition. And we have some major news coming out in probably next week about another major open source project, which we're making changes to accommodate them.
All right, next up is SS Robbins asked on Platzi. Is there a plan for Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android build environments?
Yes, and the plan is it's available right now. So
Sweet.
If you need to build your code on any of those platforms, that's possible. And that's possible thanks to Camille. We mentioned him earlier. So we had some Ruby installation that required a lot of things. And he made a Go runner. And the Go runner is really simple. It compiles on all kinds of platforms. I think there's now S390 support, if you know what that is. There's loads of platforms on which it runs. So you don't need to run GitLab on that platform. You need to run GitLab Runner on that platform. And it has support for every environment where Go builds, which is a lot by these days. So people are running it on Mac OS X to test their iPhone builds, on ARM to create packages for the Raspberry Pi. So it should run today on every platform that you're likely to need.
This next comment comes in from a GitLabber who's on Hacker News. Apparently there's a conversation going on there about the compensation calculator being below market in terms of working for GitLab. So
yeah, well, I have my opinion. I'll let Barbie chime in too. I think what we're doing as a company, we're transparent about the salaries we offer and how they change where you are across the world. So if you're in San Francisco, you're going to get paid more than when you're in Italy. We think that's fair because your costs are going to be different as well. There are people that say, look, you need the same pay across the world. And we disagree with that. We think if we do that, we'll end up somewhere probably between, with the salary between San Francisco and Italy, and we'll never be able to hire someone in San Francisco. And we want a diverse company, and that includes people that are living in very expensive areas and need to be compensated for that. What do you think, Barbie?
Well, I think that compensation is one of the challenging things about being a distributed company. And the reality is that when you look at compensation, you are also looking at what the market rates are. And the reality is those markets are different across the world. And so we had to Sid's point, look at the markets differently. However, I will say that I don't disagree that the compensation calculator deserves being looked at. And we are currently putting a lot of effort into doing so. And that's one of the first projects that I started getting involved in here at GitLab, and Brittany on my team and Ernst on the team and myself are all very focused on this, as is Sid. And we will do our best to make sure what we have is correct, and if it's not, fix that. But I don't think we'll ever get to a point where it should be in a situation where someone in a very low cost standard of living area and much more affordable area would have the exact same compensation as somewhere in San Francisco or a more high-cost area to live. So I think that it can look strange on paper, but when you actually look at it in a practical way, it makes sense that we're trying to do our best to serve people where they are instead of centering all around one location, since that's not what our employees are doing.
How do you even determine market rates? Maybe I'm acting out of some ignorance there, but like what goes into it? And how do you decide, even for a specific market, like say Houston, what's the market rate there to use in those calculators?
It's very challenging. We currently use RIT indexes to try to give us an idea of what the cost of living is in different areas. Looking at market, though, is a broader question, and there's obviously comp surveys out there and people you can talk to, but they vary widely. And what one person considers the skill and market of a senior software engineer varies across companies. So what I find the best way to do is to actually talk to candidates and talk to our employees about what they're seeing on the market and what they're experiencing. We could have a long conversation about this around the way the tide is going in the US, at least, in terms of actually talking openly about compensation. And there's certainly some states who want to stop that open conversation. But I think it's a valuable open conversation. It's how you can gut check whether or not you're getting it right. And so I think it's using some comp surveys, it's using RIT indexes, and it's talking to people in market about what they're experiencing to really try to make sure you're getting to the right comparisons and the right numbers.
This is a very complicated subject to dive into, I'm sure.
Very.
And very close to the heart, because that's where you sustain your family on. So everybody's going to be very on edge about it. Moving in a completely different direction with a spicy onion, as a matter of fact. Spicy onion on Platzi. I mean, that's an awesome username. I love that. Direct ask. Can we have a single project board that can be used across all repos? So a project board of all, grand project board, so to speak.
Yeah, so probably spicy onion, thanks for the question. I'm interpreting it as an issue board that can be used across multiple projects. And we released that with GitLab 10, and it's available, but only in our enterprise edition. And they're called group level issue boards. And I hope that was your question.
Here's a follow-up that I often think about when we see like open core situations. There's a fine line to walk between what goes into core or community edition and what people need to pay for. Do you have a rule of thumb about how you decide this is going to be something that everybody gets for free, or this is going to be a paywall?
Yeah, no, that's one of the hardest things we do is determining which feature goes in what version, and we don't always get it right. For example, last Christmas, we decided to open source GitLab Pages because we put it in the enterprise edition, but it didn't belong there. The rules we used are specified on our stewardship page, and the idea is that a few things we always want to be in open source. The open source will always have a current version of the user interface. It will always have everything that's in our scope, so all the phases of the complete DevOps lifecycle. Now, how we determine if something should be proprietary is that if we think you're more likely to use it if you work at an organization with more than 100 people. And the hard part about this is more likely, because obviously every feature is something that someone that even using GitLab with 1 or 2 people wants as well. So there's no features that nobody wants to see in the open source version. But we try to find features that you're more likely to use the bigger your organization is. And it's hard to get that exactly right. And we try every time. We listen to the feedback on our blog and try to adjust where necessary. But we'll never get to a stage where everyone is happy. We'll never get to a stage where everything is open source. We want to build a sustainable company at the same time. But it's one of the hardest parts, and we appreciate all the feedback we always get.
Next question is one of the hardest to pronounce. Thanks for giving me this one, Adam.
You're welcome.
Unuber? I don't know. Enuber on Platzi. Container seems good for a whole app, but I do more plugins. Is there some hint about how to do that with GitLab?
So, developing plugins with GitLab, I'm not sure exactly what kind of plugins for what thing you do that, but I think if you develop just plugins, it's probably attractive to get a container off the application, specify that as your container image, and then run the plugin together with the rest of the application to test your functionality. So I'd look into something like that.
Next up is, I believe, Rufinus. Did you say that like that? Rufinus? Yeah.
Rufio.
Rufio. Platzi asked, this is a bit of a disjointed question towards the end here. There's a lot of some comments here afterwards, but why are so many great features only in EEP? And then it goes on to say, as EES user, it's really sad. Geo is EEP, okay, don't need it, but service desk question mark, crossfork, MR. So it's kind of, hopefully you're catching
That was
that.
back to what we were talking about.
No, I get the question.
How do you decide which goes into where, basically?
And that's hard.
Yeah.
And thanks for asking. So what he's asking about, we have Enterprise Edition Standard and Enterprise Edition Premium, and some people are on Enterprise Edition Standard, and we say, hey, that's a great offering if you're an organization, if you're not at a super large organization. But some of the features these user wants, like our Service Desk offering, would also be interesting to them. And now they can't use it. They'll have to pay more, 5 times more, for our Enterprise Edition Premium version. It comes back to like, there's no feature that nobody wants if they're in a smaller organization.
Right.
And I can see how you want to use Service Desk. Service Desk, for people that don't know it, it means you can send an email, and then in GitLab creates an issue. Think of it as like an open source Zendesk. And that's a great feature. We think the larger your organization, the more likely you are to have like a support queue where multiple people work together to do it, in which case GitLab Issues is a great solution. If there's only one person, you tend to like route the emails just to their inbox. But it doesn't mean that if you're in a smaller organization, it's not useful. It just means we think it's a feature that you're more likely to use if you're at a larger organization, and that's why we decided to put it in Enterprise Edition Premium.
Very good. Next up, P. Fedigan on Platzi. Are there any plans to integrate with ServiceNow?
We're looking at that. We're getting a lot of questions from people that want to integrate with other tools. We talked today about our portfolio management strategy. So some of functionality is coming to GitLab. But we realize if you're using ServiceNow today, you're not going to throw that away when you implement GitLab. So we're looking at a better integration. I can't promise anything right here. I encourage you to like comment on the issue. I'm sure there's an issue already for integrating with ServiceNow. And as a workaround, if you want to do it today, I know there's a commercial vendor called TaskTop that has that integration, but that's a paid product.
I think you made a good point there that there's an issue, or likely an issue, therefore there's, behind the scenes, there's some sort of conversation happening around these things. So find the issues, search issues, or in the Q&A, ask you directly.
Yeah, and it's behind the scenes of this webcast, but it's not behind the scenes for you. Open. Like, it's open. You can see what our product managers are thinking, what our salespeople are thinking. You can correct their thinking.
Anybody in GitLab is available through issues, basically. Everybody has access to participate and communicate and share their knowledge. Okay. Brett DH on Platzi asks, so what if I want to use a third-party code review tool, such as Review Board or Fabricator with GitLab, is that supported today? Is it someday? We'll leave it there, but then he also asked more generically, is it GitLab's goal to allow customization of any part of the complete DevOps cycle while starting with batteries included?
Yeah, no, thanks for those questions. Review Board added support for GitLab a while ago, I think more than 2 years ago, so you can totally use that. Fabricator, I think it's more of an alternative for GitLab, so I'm not sure how that will work. It is very much our goal to allow customization. So if you look at other DevOps today, the secret is it's just another GitLab CI.YAML script executing a bunch of Helm charts. So you can take that script, you can add it to your repository, and you can make edits in it. Actually, we put some stuff in that script that you might want to comment in. We commented out canary deploys because not everyone needs a canary deploy. However, if you take that script, add it to your repo, and take out the comments, and make it from commented out to live code, you now have that. So yes, we want to make it very easy for you to graduate and be in control of how that life cycle looks, and for what you use GitLab and for what you use something else.
Very good. D. Stalder on Platzi. Any plans for adding in the new features that come up into the GitLab.rb? You might have to explain that for the rest of us. Currently, we have to hunt down the new features and add them.
Yep. So now my knowledge is not perfect as well. I think GitLab.rb is our file that we ship where you customize the omnibus installation. It could also be that GitLab.yaml is the one where you customize the omnibus installation. So I don't know how exactly to talk about it. I think our goal is to have all the features you can customize in GitLab in the omnibus installation. I think if you're using GitLab from source, it's harder to customize and you might have to contribute that. We recommend switching to the omnibus installation, but thanks for contributing the features so far, and I'm sorry we don't help with that use case, and we're dependent on you contributing those.
The next one tried to be a tongue twister. Guest 93129633.
That's their phone number.
I was thinking that, but
Social
it's like
security number, probably.
It's 2 numbers off from a phone number. Regarding tracing, are you planning to leverage existing projects, for example, Jaeger from Uber, which is OpenTrace compatible, or build STH your own? What does STH mean?
No. Well, thanks very much.
Stuff.
Jaeger is if you haven't seen it, Jaeger is Uber's implementation of open tracing, and it's looking really, really nice. We're not committing to it today, but if you look at that issue that was linked, you'll see that I commented on the open tracing issue at the GitLab issue tracker, saying that we should definitely look into Jaeger. So thanks for mentioning that. It's on our radar, and we'd love to have people comment in that issue that are actually using it.
This next question is an interesting one. I know we joked earlier, I'm not sure if it was on the live call or not, about ICOing.
I think it was.
I think it probably was. But it does make some sense in terms of allowing open investment, open company, community, all that stuff. So the question is, are there plans to allow open investment into GitLab?
Thanks. Well, thanks for being, I assume, interested in investing in GitLab. Unless you're planning to short us. In that case, no thanks. We looked into that. One of our values is boring solutions, and one of our goals is to IPO in 2020. And of the companies that IPO, very few of them have done crowdfunding. That's also because crowdfunding is relatively recent, but it's also because, in my perspective, crowdfunding can be a distraction. We have fiduciary duty towards our investors. We give them more information than is out there in public, and lots of financial metrics that are confidential. And if you do a crowdfunding, you're no longer, you kind of have to find like halfway between that. You've got to share a bit more than you do to the general public, but probably a bit less than we now do to our investors, because it's a much wider group. We think that's a very difficult trade-off to make, so we don't have any plans to do a crowdfunding. And I'm the ICO, I meant that as a joke. We like ICOs, but we don't think that GitLab is a blockchain native company.
That's a bummer. I was going to invest. This might be a good one to end on, because this is our last question, unless we get some more after this, and I don't think so, but this is going to be our last one.
PFED again?
PFED again, thank you, Jerod. This is a great one. What CEOs do you look up to? Meaning, who inspires you? Who do you seek knowledge from? Who's your mentor?
Well, one very easy one.
Right.
Matt, that joined our board, is someone I look up to. Matt, you're going to get on screen. I think Matt's already helped us in our board meetings. We're expanding internationally. We're incorporating in Germany, and he and his team helped us with that.
Wow.
He also is able to articulate the value of open source and how you scale remote only to the other board members, and that's very, very important as we scale, and this is something unfamiliar to some of the board members. Other CEOs I look up to are Elon Musk for when all his companies, he had multiple companies, and when they started failing, he didn't try to save one, he tried to save them all, and put all his money, all his net worth on the line for that. I think that's really inspiring. I I like what Jeff Bezos is doing. What Amazon did, entering into new markets, is amazing. And he says about that, we're willing to be misunderstood for a long time. And we at GitLab enter new markets, but hopefully we're not going to be misunderstood for such a long time. But that they do it for such a long time and they keep it up year over year, building completely different businesses besides each other, and then scaling the company and making sure that the fact that the organization is growing doesn't mean like that the complexity grows exponentially. I think that's very, very inspiring.
Well, I guess we'll leave it there. This has been a lot of fun. Easiest way to close is thank everybody. Thank you, audience, for tuning in to this, I guess, roughly almost 2 hours. Almost 2 hours.
Dedicated listeners.
So if you've been here all two hours, thank you so much. If you shared questions, thank you so much. Thank you to Matt, thank you to Dave, thank you to Barbie, thank you to Sid, and the rest of the team behind this. Plotzy for making this all possible. Obviously, my co-host Jerod, can't do without your brother. And we're done. Thank you very much.
Get the slides, read the recap at about.gitlab.com/blog, and we'll see you next time.
Next year.